what is racism? What is racism to us? What is racism now?
What are we fighting?
What exactly are we fighting?
Well, I know for me, like with the kind of conversations that I have with my white friends, which I would say like when we're talking about something like this, that I actually feel like there's some progression, is when there's something like talking about the origins of some concepts where things were invented and stuff like that. So the example I had with my friend was that, you know, we've got the ancient African pyramids where you can get like the Fibonacci sequence from the way that they're angled. But so I said to my friend, okay, so what's the problem with that? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, how can you name something Fibonacci of something that was built beforehand? So I think there's a lot of almost like, it's not so much like white people attributing negative things to black people, the people that I'm surrounded with. It's actually false narratives of superiority within the white identity. And that's when I'm talking with my friends and we kind of like, we're having this dialogue, that's why I feel there is a little bit of progression, because even though he's not overtly going out to try and be racist, if he was raising a child, he wouldn't be raising that child saying, oh yeah, this mathematical concept, pi, Fibonacci, all of that was done ages ago in Africa. He'd be attributing that to a Greek, and within that is like the slow seeds of which may manifest in any which way, but the fact that it's just false, it's like, that is to do with race, and it is progressive, but it isn't necessarily what people think you'd be talking about, because of so many people dying and stuff. It does feel like there's more extreme things to tackle, because that conversation didn't save anyone's life, you know?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of look at how something like race kind of is interweaved with other things like culture and well, we use the term ethnicity a lot for race because race is kind of like politically not correct, and but generally, like, I do think that you have to see how that racism have kind of become expressed in different ways, and how certain other things, like, say, to return to kind of British or English nationality, how that is in itself can be implicated in a kind of racist expressions or racism, because I think
sorry to cut you off. I think it's like in today racism, I think is more subtle. It's the disparity in employment. It's like the differences in opinion. It's media portrayals, terrorists, not terrorists. It's kind of stuff like that, and like things that you don't even see overtly happening, or you sometimes don't even realise are happening around you. But the long-term effects it has on your identity as you grow up as a person, like not noticing that, like you said, institutional racism is a thing where it's like the syllabus only teaches you that anyone from Africa was a slave, was slums. Like, I think stuff like that has profound effects that aren't always tackled and discussed.